Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for July the 11th. It's a new week and it's another one in which Celtic have two games. The team are off to the Czech Republic to face Baník Ostrava to honour their centenary year, and over there with them will be Herald sports writer Graeme McGarry, who joins me today as Tony is enjoying a well-deserved day off for his 50th birthday. How are we, Graeme? All good?
You there, Sean? Aye.
I'm there. I think you're thinking. You froze. All good. Aye, all good.
All good now. All good now. All good now.
Right, before we start, I'll get the wee bit of housekeeping that we always do. We're sponsored by the One Football app, which is your one-stop shop for live scores, news, lineups, etc., all of that stuff. It's completely free. You just download it from your app store, and the link is, as always, in the description. We're also offering full access to everything on the Celtic Way website just now for £3 for 3 months. That will take you all the way up to the middle of October if you jump on that just now. Again, I'll put the link in the description for you. Right, Graeme, are you there definitely this time?
Yeah, 100%, mate.
Right, where were we? Baník Ostrava, yeah. So what's the sketch for yourself? You're leaving to travel there very shortly after this, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm just a wee bit concerned. The maid might come in and tough me out my room halfway through this call. Maybe I thought they'd cut off my internet there for a wee minute. So we'll be getting the train over to Ostrava today. It's about a 3-hour train journey from Vienna to Ostrava. So go down there and obviously meet up with the team. They don't travel till tomorrow. So we'll kind of catch up with them tomorrow and find out what's what. But we'll be speaking to a player later on as well and just kind of get the latest for the camp. But yeah, it's been a good wee stay in Vienna, certainly for myself, and I know for Celtic as well. I think they've really taken a lot from the camp they've had down in Bad Erlach. So yeah, it's been very productive so far.
On the subject of travelling, etc., just while I've got you, I was kind of hoping to see a couple of them, but specifically Josh Deddy on the bench on Saturday, given Josip Juranovic and Ante Ralston didn't make the squad. There were a few reports or kind of rumours really online that he and a couple of other youth or B team players travelled home after the first game. Is that something you were made aware of over there? Or?
No, not at all. I mean, there was a lot of them kind of hanging about and at the game. I didn't specifically see Josh, I've got to be honest, but yeah, I saw some of the boys who were involved in the first game still with the travelling party. So no, that's not something we've been made aware of at all. But yeah, I mean, I think it's been a worthwhile exercise. Even if they did go home, I think giving the fans a wee glimpse of him getting a wee bit of game time over here, and obviously getting to train with the first team players, it's got to be a valuable experience for him, definitely.
It was just, I mean, the B team / an under-23 select were meant to take on Northampton July the 6th, I think it was, but it was cancelled. And before that, a Celtic team with the likes of Boston Lowell and Owen Moffat and stuff did lose 6-1 to East Kilbride a few days before that. But I think I was just curious because obviously he made a raft of changes against Rapid Vienna at the weekend, at half time, and Osaze Urhoghide get the whole game. Yeah. Given that Ralston and Juranovic were out, I was just wondering if you'd heard anything about why maybe Josh Deddy wouldn't have been in the squad. But on the youth players in general, I mean, I wrote our newsletter on it the other day, and I've mentioned it a fair few times the past couple of weeks as well. But I'm genuinely just very intrigued to see which of the B team players has managed to make an impression on Ange Postecoglou during this kind of trip, to the extent that they actually get the nod to be in and about the squads throughout the first half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of them have done themselves any harm. The guys who played against Vienna Victoria, I think they played really well. They looked comfortable. They didn't look out their depth or anything like that. And they all look as if they're willing to kind of commit themselves to Ange's style of play, which I think is probably going to be the most pleasing thing for them. So yeah, I mean, this is what pre-season's all about, I guess. It's giving these young guys a chance, and it's about kind of which ones will sink and which ones will swim.
Yeah, got a few comments in Boston Lovell, Simon Thomas here saying he'll be a good player. Get a few comments in for Tony's 50th, saying he's Kevin Ferrier saying I bet he's got another green top for his birthday. I presume that's probably the case, to be honest.
Yeah, I picked him up a Rapid Vienna top when I'm over here.
That's not the green and white he wants. That's not the green and white he wants. I think on that note, actually, Rapid Vienna. Well, I've got you again. Just a quick one. What did you make of that game?
I thought it was great. In terms of pre-season games, it was magic. The atmosphere was really good. There was a wee bit of needle there, and a fair bit of kind of venom coming for the stands as well. So I think for a pre-season friendly, if you want to call it that. It was just what Celtic needed at that moment in time. I think after the game, Ange Postecoglou was delighted with it, the kind of test that the players got, and also the way the players embraced it, because we were talking off earlier, Sean, just before we came on, and there was a wee moment where Callum McGregor clattered into a challenge, and Matt O'Reilly immediately clattered into a challenge, and it was kind of, right, here we go, it's business time, the pre-season stuff's over, and we're ready to go again. So I really enjoyed it, I've got to say. I mean, I think there's moments of sloppiness. Obviously, the goals that Celtic lost, you could probably look at all three of them and think probably during the season you don't lose goals like that. But I think the goals they scored were really pleasing, and there was a lot of stuff to be kind of happy about, especially the fact that apart from Uragidi, there was two different teams in each half as well.
I was saying to Tony after the game, we done a post-match reaction. I think, well, Ange Postecoglou's already mentioned it as well, but you learn a lot more from that 3-3 than you do from the 7-0. And I think Kevin Ferreira, I like this. There was a few comments like this on Saturday that they've not changed since the 80s. It's the same and stuff like that. I must admit though, I did think there should have been a sending off, Graeme. I think if it was a friendly, it probably would have been a red card. Do you agree?
I do,
I'm talking about the kind of swipe.
It was a shocker. It was right down in front of us, and the Celtic bench were not too pleased. Let's just put it that way. But as I say, if it wasn't a friendly, you're talking a red card there, definitely.
Retro Celtic, Rapid game was a good game, especially for a pre-season friendly. I think you can't really ask for much more from a pre-season friendly. If it's not played like a friendly, that is the main thing, because that's the kind of the way that you get up to speed. There's a few comments here, so I might as well just move swiftly on to it, Graeme. As soon as the Vinicius Souza stuff had concluded, another name popped up. This time it's Fausto Vera from Argentinos Juniors. There's another defensive midfielder, 22 years of age this time. No actual offer as yet, must be said, and a few other clubs are interested, and there's maybe price concerns given a couple of the reports. But however, a quick look at his data tells me that he's already played more than 2,300 minutes this season. Loves an interception. He makes more than 4 per game. For context, McGregor's about 3.8, Hatati's about 3.5. Argentinos Juniors also dominate the ball and rank highly in the league for pressing intensity. So in terms of team style, he's used to playing in that type of side in general, which I always think helps. We will have a full scout report up on him in the next day or two if we can firm the link up a bit. But really, Graeme, what some of these links do tell us more than the actual individuals is the positions that Celtic seem to be looking at, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we said to Ange after the game, asked him about targets, and he's been very consistent all the way through this tour that he still needs 2, maybe 3 bodies in, and it seems to be sort of defensive midfielders. He's one of his main priorities. I don't know with this link. We've obviously got this link, and you've got the link to Abu Fani as well. So you can see that that's an area that Ange is definitely looking at. With this one, I don't know if there's maybe a wee element of 2 + 2 = 5 getting made here, just with the Bernabei deal, and Celtic obviously looking in that area. It's funny in the way out here, in the queue to put my bag in, I actually bumped into Mark Cooper, who's the scout for Celtic over in South America. We'd seen him at the Bernabei press conference. I was like, "Come on, Mick, man, who are you going to look at next?" He wasn't giving much away, but we'll try and chase him down and see what the scoop is with this guy. But yeah, I mean, as you say, his profile seems to fit Celtic. I think you look at the Celtic midfield the other night, and he started with McGregor, Hatate, and O'Reilly, and fabulous footballers, the 3 of them, and all 3 of those boys. I think particularly Hatate and McGregor look really, really sharp.
Yeah, I agree.
But I would have concerns over those 3 starting Champions League games together, just because it maybe lacks that wee bit of old-fashioned bite, So I think it is a priority area, and we'll kind of see what comes with these links. But certainly it'll be something we'll be putting to Ange tomorrow.
I mean, for me, it's two things, not even necessarily just this link. Although that is good to see Celtic looking in places like Argentina, and I'll actually use that sentence to get in another plug because Tony done a really interesting feature on the website over the weekend with Eric Black, who took 6 Argentines on trial back in 1998. He's probably regular viewers will have heard me mentioning that when we interviewed Juan Arango about Alexandro Bernabei and stuff. And basically, Eric Black says one in particular might have actually beaten Bernabei to being the club's first Argentinian. It's definitely worth a read anyway, and I'll link these up in the comments. But the second thing is that you kind of touched on it there. It really it's about Europe for this area of the pitch, isn't it? That's primarily what a player in that position will be for. Maybe the derby games, if you subscribe to the narrative that you play that like a European game, etc. But ultimately, recruiting a player in that position is primarily with an eye on Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the game the other night, either of those teams that started the game itself or started the second half could probably win games domestically quite handily. There's enough quality in there and there's enough strength and depth in the squad. The luxury Ange has now, because he's had such a good strike rate with his signings, is that it's tweaking it now. It's about improving certain areas here and there. He's obviously identified this as one that has to be improved for the Champions League. Because I think that midfield would, as I mentioned, would run rings around just about any Scottish opponent. And we probably do very well going forward in Europe as well. But I think you do need that wee bit of insurance when you come up against a better quality player. And that's obviously what Ange's looking for.
I said after the game with Tony on Saturday, I think that's probably the midfield trio that you'll see the most if everybody stays fit. McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly. I think they do possess a wee bit of bite that they sometimes maybe don't get the credit for, but ultimately, obviously, it's none of their games to be the kind of sitting defensive midfielder. It's when it's McGregor sitting there, it's all about progressing the ball, and I think in Scottish football that's why he's there, because there almost isn't a need for a defensive midfielder in Scottish football for Celtic, maybe apart from a couple of derby games. I think that the argument, and I've been saying this to Tony, I've been annoying him saying it every time that he brings up a defensive midfielder, but they need to be able to have the technical quality to progress the ball as well. They can't just be a spoiler, because I think they'll get lost. Even in Europe, I think they'll get lost in that Celtic team if their kind of passing qualities aren't quite there. I think that's arguably why McGregor, it might end up a double pivot in Europe with McGregor sitting next to someone and maybe O'Reilly further ahead, or Hatate further ahead. Just because what McGregor offers in terms of being able to take the ball off the back four even under pressure, I don't think can be replicated just by getting a defensive midfield kind of spoiler in. They need to be able to progress it as well. But I do take your point. I think there is a definite difference between what you're expected to do in Europe and what you're expected to do domestically. I think
so I was going to say, I just agree with you. I think that's the way he will set up in Europe. I think he will have two sitting in front with one further on, and I would have McGregor there plus one other. But I mean, we all know Ange now. I don't think he would ever sign a player who wasn't, technically accomplished and willing to play the kind of style of football that he wants to play. There's no point. I don't see him signing a big sort of destroyer at all. I think there's a kind of happy medium. It's got to be somebody who is comfortable taking the ball and, as you say, progressing the ball on. Otherwise, the whole system falls down. So. Yeah,
that's the way I view it as well. I mean, David Bradley in my comment, Sean, our midfield's not solid enough for big games. I mean, that's kind of where we're coming from. That they do definitely need that more kind of combative, athletic presence, I think, in the middle. And again, if Tony's watching on his birthday morning, I'm sure he will be. He'll be sitting going, "Not again." He's constantly saying this, but it needs to be married to the technical quality, or I genuinely do think they'll get lost playing for Celtic.
Yeah, and you look at the players that Celtic are being linked with, it's all players with that kind of profile. There's no real just big destroyers in there, So, yeah, I think that's definitely the way it's going to go.
Retro Celtic mentioning another. I mean, Ange Postecoglou says to use the other day, one or two more probably coming in. We're pretty sure one of them's probably going to be in that position we're talking about. A ball-playing centre-half, the Retro Celtic said, is essential for Europe. I don't disagree. I just don't know if they're going to bring in another big centre-back signing, which I think it would need to be, because Carl Starfelt cost $4 million last summer. So realistically, I think it's probably, if it is another centre-back, it's going to be someone else as a backup rather than a bona fide first-team signing, Graeme.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree Julien's probably on his way out, and regardless of what happens, he's moved to Schalke. I don't think he did anything the other night against Vienna to convince me otherwise that Ange might see him as a viable option. Caught in the ball a couple of times and a wee bit lackadaisical. So I think, I mean, what you can argue though is you've got Bosun Lawal there who, as I was saying to you last time, Sean, I think is still a bit rough and ready for the first team, a wee bit raw. But, worst comes to worst in domestic situations, I think he's a viable backup as well. So I think Ange will maybe be looking to get somebody who can challenge Carl Starfelt and Cameron Carter-Vickers. Probably more Carl Starfelt, I would guess.
I think so.
I think Carter-Vickers is nailed on. But yeah, I mean, ball-playing centre-backs don't grow in trees, unfortunately. So yeah,
Especially the left-footed ones, left-sided ones.
Yeah,
that's Speaking of, Liam Scales made his Aberdeen debut at left centre-back at the weekend against Peterhead. Again, I think it was important he maybe went out on loan, because I didn't really see him as a viable option for the rotation game at centre-back, because it is a limited rotation game. He won't want to rotate those positions. I've kind of wrote a couple of columns on that before. Also, Scales mentioned he did prefer centre-back, but he'd only really played left-back for Celtic. I think maybe physicality for me, despite his height and his frame, I think he does need to get used to that in Scottish football, and I think arguably going to Aberdeen will prepare him for that. Signal's gone again, Graeme, I think. But I was going to move on topic anyway. I'm sure maybe he's not paid that lecky bill.
Yeah, I'm back. Hello.
Oh, a penny in the meter, is it?
I heard your stuff I heard about half of your stuff about Scales, but I think
no, just that he played left centre back, and I think the physicality of Scottish football is something he had to get used to if he was wanting to play centre back, and he wasn't going to get that game time to learn it at Celtic, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
listen, I was quite impressed with Scales when he played last year. I thought he was pretty decent. Also playing at left back. I was intrigued to see how he would do at Aberdeen, because Jim Goodwin made it pretty clear that he was going to play him at left centre back.
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps that's why that option to buy wasn't included in the deal. I think I'm just quite happy to see him go there and get experience in that position, and maybe 12 months from now we'll be talking about him as a viable option in there.
Yeah. Robert McClatchy, what happened to Dane Murray? He was promising. He's still injured, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still out.
He's not long term, man.
Yeah, and he's a good young player, and I think he was thrown in at the deep end a wee bit last season, and I would take that to be the kind of defining memory that people have of him, because he's a very, very promising young player.
Right, before we go, I just want to touch on some of your own work, Graeme. First of all, Dylan Reid, St Mirren youngster, about to choose between Rangers and Celtic. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, well, Celtic have had a bid accepted, £125,000, but it's sort of known that Rangers are quite willing, I think, to match that bid and try and bring him in. Ange said the other night when we asked him about it, it wasn't for the first team, it's a long-term sort of thing. He would be coming in to play for the B team. However, I think he's felt the need now to sort of intervene a wee bit and have a chat with him. So he's going to be speaking to Ange today, Dylan Reid. I think it's a Zoom call they're setting up. One of these famous Ange calls. So we'll see how that goes. But the boy's got a decision to make, and I think it's probably more about long-term, what's the best path to the first team. And I think Celtic, can justifiably say that they've had a better track record in doing that, although it still needs a bit of improvement in my view. But there's certainly a better track record than Rangers have over the last few years of progressing boys into the first team.
That leads me a nice segue into someone who has progressed into the first team and has been there for 13 seasons now, 13 pre-seasons. You spoke to James Forrest. He perhaps predictably said that he isn't just there to make up the numbers and wants to contribute and stuff. I mean, what's your view on that? Because regular viewers will know that mine is that he can do that without the expectation of maybe playing 2 or 3 times a week. That might actually help him stay fit, actually. Yeah,
I think it's probably the most determined I've seen James Forrest. He's quite a kind of laid-back guy. And he just seems really, really kind of switched on, really focused and dialed in. And, he's been putting in a lot of work over here. I think physically, it looks the fittest I've seen him in a long time. I know he probably wasn't involved in the game as much as he would have wanted against Rapid the other night when he came on. But I think anyone who writes James Forrest off, as he has been throughout his Celtic career at various points, he always proves that he can come back and make a telling contribution. And I think if anything, he's a wee bit underrated as a player. He's not maybe as flashy as the likes here Jota or even Abada, but I think he's still got something to offer, even at 31. They wouldn't have offered him the contract otherwise.
I do. I think he's got something to offer. As I say, not as a bona fide starter, not 3 games a week, but I do think he can contribute as a season goes on, especially if he stays fit. And I mean, a common criticism is that he's lost a bit of pace, which he has. But I mean, I remember making this point to Alison and Tony mid-season. I think it was after the Livingston game where he come back and had a good game, good impact. That he's a more intelligent winger than I think a lot of people give him credit for. Maybe when he was younger, it was all about the pace, but I think certainly since Brendan Rodgers, he hasn't been all about pace. I think it helps that he was always fast, and he might have lost that yard, but I do think it's kind of overstated how reliant on it he was, and I think you'll maybe see that this season. His intelligence coming to the fore over his raw pace.
Yeah, he definitely has changed his style, and you can see him. He comes inside an awful lot more than what he used to, and sort of linking up with the striker that way, kind of playing 1-2s off the striker. So, yeah, I mean, I really like James Forrest. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think I think at the end of his career, whenever that comes, people look back in James Forrest's career at Celtic has been a massive success. He's going to be one of the most decorated players in the club's history, and a real successful time, and he's more than played his part in that.
On that note, and this is just a random aside of the kind of thing that former sub-editor notices, but I remember when he signed his new Celtic deal, they listed his honours, and they didn't list last season's League Cup, presumably because he didn't play in the final. Maybe they didn't give him a medal, but he scored the winner in the semi to put them there, which I felt was a bit odd.
I think he's got a medal. I think he has. I don't know.
I would have presumed they did get one, but it wasn't listed in some of the honours. So, a couple of comments. Michael Ross, Forrest's a great Celtic player. David Bradley, Forrest needs to start the season with a bang if he wants to start. I agree, he probably does. And as I say, I wouldn't necessarily be advocating for him to start every game or 2 times a week or anything like that. I think he is going to be a squad player, and I think he probably saw that reflected by the length of the deal that he got. That he's probably accepted that role of first team starter, something he's going to need to earn again.
I think he's he understands that completely. And what James always says is, like the strength of the squad. Anytime they've had their big successful periods, kind of Leo Lennon the first time round, when Brendan Rodgers was there, it's always been when the squad's been really strong, and he's not been guaranteed a starting slot. And it kind of seems to spur him on. It's I think he's shed a couple of kilos as well. I think he looks a wee bit leaner this season. I don't know. I just get this feeling that he's going to maybe not be a key player, as you say, but I think he's going to make a kind of key contribution, if you want to put it that way.
The famous one was that I remember anyway. Patrick Roberts kind of urged them on that competition, kind of urged them on to a kind of more consistent level. But he's got that this year. There's plenty of competition there. I would probably agree with David Bradley. If he wants to start, he really needs to kind of impress to get the start. Because I think the starting wingers for me is probably what you saw at the weekend, Jota and Maeda. I think that's probably the two main wingers for me. Then you've got Abada competing with them. Maybe Mikey Johnston. We kind of spoke about him the other day, but I mean your other article, not to forget that your other article, which both of these, by the way, are on our website as well. They're not just on the Herald stuff. Is with Kyogo. Now, I don't know, was that through an interpreter, that one?
Aki's over here, the interpreter, so he's earning his keep, because we spoke to him and Rio Hitati so far. He's in great form, not just on the pitch when he came off it. He was.
He did play well,
though. He did play really well. He's so sharp, Kyogo, and his movement is just so good. I mean, I think you saw the difference. I mean, no harm to big Giakoumakis, who I really like. He's also a very different type of player. But the rapid defenders didn't know what to do with Kyogo the other night.
The article that I've put the link into, he's basically saying that, or his interpreter saying that he's aiming for 20 plus goals in the league this season and would like to take the Premiership top scorer award from Georgios Giakoumakis. Both staying fit. That is excellent intra-squad competition, because both so far look like they enjoy playing with those wingers that I mentioned, even if it's for different reasons. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting how Ange plays it. We've always asked him about this. Is there a scope to play both of them? I don't think there is. I don't think you can play Kyogo wide in this system. I don't think he's anywhere near as effective. So it's going to be interesting to see who's in the team first and foremost most weeks. I think it'll be Kyogo. And if he can live up to that billing. But he was kind of laughing about it. He wants to knock Jacko off his perch, sort of thing. I think Giakoumakis has been giving him a bit of pelters about it, the fact that he edged him on the last day of the season. But as you say, it's kind of similar with Forrest. These guys every day pushing each other on, and just to try and reach a new level. It was really interesting the other day. We went to training, and after it, Kyogo's just doing laps of the park himself. And everyone's gone, everyone's in the gym or whatever doing their warm downs, and he's just running around outside of the park. And he said, and we asked him about it in the interview, and he said in the article, it's because he's got goals that he still wants to reach. He thinks he can still be a better player, and he's going to do everything he can to get there. So that's a pretty exciting prospect, I've got to say.
I wondered if he'd meant because he'd obviously had the injuries last season and the injury near the end of the season. Obviously, he came back for the last few games, but pardon me, I'd wondered if it was maybe that he was maybe still on some sort of separate regime. But
No,
I mean,
it's just voluntarily. It was one of the coaches was shouting over, come on, you. And he's just like, no, I'm fine.
To be fair, that reflects what you see on the pitch from him, I suppose. Him and Maida both, actually. But yeah, there's a few comments coming in. Retro Celtic, Kyogo has now guaranteed that he's going to be the league's top scorer, but hopefully it's the Champions League. Big ask, Retro Celtic. Right, I think before I forget, by the way, if any of you are on Twitter, you'll have heard me saying this on Saturday and on Friday, we're currently running a giveaway of a Celtic away top. It's free to enter. All you need to do is go to our Twitter profile, retweet the pinned post at the top, and make sure you follow us, and that'll be you in the draw for Wednesday. I think on that note, we'll call it, Graeme. Thank you very much for joining us from your travels, and safe trip to Ostrava. Thanks as always for your comments, guys, and myself and Tony, the birthday boy, the 50-year-old, will be back with you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.